The orbiting adoption station above Illyria buzzed with quiet efficiency. Metal floors gleamed under artificial sunlight, and robotic caretakers shuffled about in program patterns. Alien children of all shapes and species played in monitored zones, some giggling with hopeful energy, others staring numbly at the ceiling. In the far corner of Ward C, where the difficult placements were kept, sat a small figure no one wanted anymore. Kalira. Age, 8 solar cycles. Species, Velari. Status, rejected and returned, 9 times. She sat curled on a cushion too big for her, feathered tendrils drooping in dull gray hues. Velari were known for their empathic abilities, sensitive, emotional, and deeply attuned to the feelings of those around them. In theory, they were prize companions. In practice, most families couldn't handle the mirror-like way a Velari child would reflect fear, sadness, or anger right back at them. The first family had returned her for being too quiet. The second said she made their son cry. The third said her presence triggered migraines. The fourth and fifth didn't even last a full week. With each rejection, Kalira withdrew deeper, speaking less, trusting no one. Her feathers, once shimmering like a nebula, had faded to storm cloud gray. Another return had just been processed. This time it was the Zenthari nobles, flashy, tall, and prideful. They had cooed over her delicate features and talked about charity optics, only to send her back 2 days later with the same reason as many before: unstable emotional frequencies. Kalira sat in silence as the shuttle carrying them vanished through the docking bay. She didn't cry. She didn't sigh. She just sat, waiting for the next inevitable disappointment. Station attendant Rook, a humanoid with smooth, bark-like skin, shook his head as he passed by. Poor thing. I think she's broken. Maybe better off being transferred to long-term care. The other caretakers didn't respond. They'd stopped getting attached. Too painful. Too much paperwork. An alarm pinged gently. A new ship had arrived. From the viewing window, Kalira could just make out the matte black hull of a human transport descending onto the docking ring. Humans weren't common here. Their adoption rates were low, too many regulations, too emotional themselves. She turned away, disinterested, until he walked in. He wasn't flashy. No ornate robes, no clicking translator drones or pushy attendants. Just a tall, quiet man in a worn black jacket, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Scarred hands, tired eyes, human. Marcus Trent, the adoption facilitator, greeted him professionally, but he waved off the guided tour. No, thank you. I'd rather look for myself. He walked slowly through the ward, pausing to talk to a few children, listening more than speaking. When he stepped into Ward C, Kalira didn't move, didn't look. She expected him to linger, frown, and walk away like the others. But he didn't. He walked to her corner and sat beside her, on the floor, cross-legged, silent. Minutes passed. She felt him, not with her eyes or ears, but with the pulsing field of emotions that swirled invisibly around all sentient beings. Marcus Trent's aura was quiet, heavy with old pain. But there was no fear, no revulsion, just stillness. He reached into his duffel and gently placed a small object between them, a stuffed creature, faded but intact. A Terran dog, stitched from cloth and old memory. No words, just the gift. Kalira's fingers trembled as they reached forward. She touched it. Soft, familiar, real. Something stirred deep in her feathers, and a faint shimmer of blue, curiosity, danced across them for the first time in weeks. Marcus gave a small nod, stood, and turned to the facilitator. Her name? Kalira. But, sir, she's been returned multiple times. Very high emotional sensitivity. We have others. I want her. The facilitator hesitated. She might not bond. Some think she's defective. She's not. Marcus's voice didn't rise, but carried. She's just been hurt too many times. Within the hour, the forms were signed. Marcus knelt again, offering his hand this time. Let's go home. Kalira looked up, truly looked at someone for the first time in a long while. The feelings that swirled around this human weren't perfect, but they were steady, solid. She took his hand. As they left the station, Kalira didn't pack much, she had few possessions. But in her lap, she cradled the stuffed animal like it was made of starlight. As the docking doors closed and Marcus piloted the ship away, she whispered a word she hadn't used in months. Safe. He heard it and smiled. Yeah, he said. You are. Kalira sat in the co-pilot's seat of the Solace, her feathered arms wrapped tightly around the Terran plush. The hum of the ship's engines was soft, unlike the cold, clinical drones used by the station's transports. This ship was warm, lived in. There were tiny scratches on the control panel, a small hanging trinket above the NAV console, and even a smell, faint but present, of wood, leather, and citrus. It was real, personal. She didn't understand it. Marcus sat in the pilot's chair, his hands gliding across the console with practiced ease. He didn't speak much. That comforted her. Words always felt dangerous, like they could turn on her. He wasn't probing. He just let her exist. Still, she kept expecting the pattern, the signs, the cues of rejection. He'd look at her feathers when they changed. He'd recoil when she mirrored his grief. He'd grow tired when she didn't speak. He'd find her too much, just like the others. He didn't. They landed at a quiet outpost colony orbiting a blue gas giant, a peaceful waypoint called Orange Hollow, known for its biodiversity. As the docking clamps hissed into place, Kalira held her breath. She expected a boarding team, or paperwork, or caretakers. Instead, Marcus unbuckled his belt and stood. This way, he said. Kalira followed, clutching the plush to her chest. He led her through the narrow corridors of the Solace until they reached a small door at the rear. It slid open with a smooth hiss. Inside was a room. Not a cell, not a holding pod, but a room. A bed with blankets patterned in Earth's constellations. A small desk with art supplies. Shelves with a mix of human and alien books. Walls painted in soft seafoam blue. This is yours, Marcus said. Your room. Kalira blinked, confused. Not a guest room. Not a test room. Yours. Forever, if you want it. She stepped in slowly. The floor was warm under her feet. The light overhead had a soft dimming option. There were no surveillance cams. No locking drawers. Everything felt trusting. Marcus watched her gently. You don't have to say anything. Just be here. Then he did something strange. He turned and walked away, leaving the door open behind him. No lock. No guards. Just space. Kalira sat on the bed, unsure how to process the ache growing in her chest. Her feathers shimmered faintly, pale green, a color Velari hadn't seen on her in years. Cautious hope. Later that evening, she found Marcus in the galley, quietly preparing a Terran meal, rice, vegetables, a protein substitute humans called tempeh. He looked up and gestured to the second seat. Hungry, she nodded slowly and sat across from him. They ate in silence for several minutes. The utensils were clumsy in her hands at first, but he didn't correct her, didn't even watch her. He simply ate, occasionally sipping from a ceramic mug. You don't speak much, Marcus said eventually, not as a question but a fact. That's okay. Kalira tensed. Most people want me to talk, she murmured. Most people are uncomfortable with silence, Marcus said. I'm not. Another pause. She set down her fork. Why me? He looked at her, long and measured. I don't know, he admitted. I saw you sitting there, and something in your eyes looked familiar. Kalira stared. I've seen soldiers break down. I've seen children in the aftermath of bombings. I've seen people wear that same look you had, like they already expected to be left behind. His voice was low, almost gentle. I used to feel that way. She lowered her eyes. I thought maybe if I could offer someone what I never had, it might matter. Kalira's voice was barely above a whisper. I feel too much. Everyone says that. Marcus smiled softly. That's not a flaw. That's a strength. You feel things most people can't. That's not something to return or discard. Kalira's feathers pulsed blue and gold, confused gratitude and wonder. She reached slowly into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch, her only real belonging. From it, she took out 3 colored beads. Blue, red, yellow. They're my emotions, she said. I use them when words are too big. Marcus reached across the table, took the beads gently in his calloused hand, and examined them. They're beautiful, he said. So was she in that moment. For the first time in her short, turbulent life, Kalira began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this time she wouldn't be sent back. Because this time, the humans stayed. The following weeks aboard the Solace passed in quiet, careful steps. Kalira settled into her room, gradually adding small decorations, bead strands, painted symbols from her culture, and faint glowing feathers she shed naturally and tied to strings near the window. Her aura began to soften. The usual storm gray of fear and caution gave way to pale greens and oranges. Calm curiosity. Marcus kept his promise. He didn't pressure. He didn't demand. Instead, he made the ship a sanctuary. Predictable routines, gentle music in the evenings, and lessons in Terran language each morning. Kalira learned quickly, especially when words could be paired with colors or touch. Empaths often did. But healing wasn't linear. The incident happened 2 months after she arrived. Marcus was attending a diplomatic summit on Varellus Prime, an uneasy neutral zone where Terran and alien representatives met to negotiate trade and humanitarian policies. Kalira had accompanied him for the first time, curious and ready to see more of the galaxy. At first, everything went well. The hall was vast, filled with light, and filled with hundreds of delegates from dozens of species. Kalira stayed close to Marcus's side, nodding politely when spoken to. Then the shouting began. A Virgon ambassador accused a Terran delegate of sabotage. Another alien demanded proof. The room filled with raised voices, aggressive posturing, emotional projection, fear, anger, blame. Kalira's feathers snapped to jet black, then violet, then red. The pressure of all those uncontrolled emotions crushed against her mind like a tidal wave. She screamed. The sound wasn't loud, but the psychic burst that radiated from her knocked over 2 chairs and shattered a glass panel. Guards rushed in. Delegates ducked. Someone yelled, "Empath backlash." Another shouted, "Control your child." Kalira collapsed to her knees, clutching her head, shaking violently. Marcus was there in seconds. He didn't shout. He didn't scold. He simply dropped to his knees beside her, wrapped her in his arms, and pulled her close. "I've got you. I've got you," he whispered again and again. When she opened her eyes, her feathers were pale blue and ash gray, fear and shame. They returned to the Solace in silence. Kalira didn't speak for 2 days. She stayed in her room, curled beneath the blanket with the Terran constellations. She didn't eat much. She didn't color her beads. Her feathers barely moved. On the 3rd night, Marcus sat outside her door. He didn't ask to come in. He just spoke. "You felt everything in that room, didn't you?" His voice was quiet. Not just the noise, the fear, the anger, the blame, like knives to your skin. Silence. "That's not your fault." Still no answer. "I used to wake up in barracks, surrounded by screaming. Bomb alarms. Brothers dying. I couldn't stop hearing it. Couldn't stop feeling it. So I shut everything out. I stopped talking. I stopped feeling." A pause. "I was lucky. Someone pulled me back. I owe them everything. Now, I want to be that for you." The door creaked open. Kalira stood there, eyes rimmed with silver tears. "I'm not strong," she whispered. "I break." Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. "Breaking doesn't make you weak. It means you are holding something too heavy, and no one should carry that alone." Kalira stepped forward. She clutched something in her hand. 3 new beads, black for fear, gray for guilt, and green for relief. She dropped them into his palm. "I thought you'd return me." Marcus knelt and held her gaze. "Never. You don't get returned from a home. You heal in one." Kalira's feathers shimmered softly, white and rose gold. Then she did something she had never done before. She hugged him. Not a brief, uncertain squeeze. A full embrace, tight, trembling, and unguarded. Her aura wrapped around him like warm light, not invading, but sharing. For once, she wasn't trying to defend her heart. She was offering it, and Marcus held it like something sacred. Later that night, she placed the new beads in a small wooden box she carved herself. On the lid, she wrote the Terran word Marcus had taught her, "Belong." She pressed her fingers to the smooth letters, then curled in her bed with the plush dog by her side. The storm was still out there, waiting, but for the first time in her life, she wasn't alone in the rain. Spring light on the Earth colony of Halberd's Reach was golden and soft, like honey spilled across the sky. Trees swayed in rhythms unfamiliar to Kalira's native forests, and the air was thick with scents she couldn't name: wildflowers, ozone, and something Marcus called fresh-cut grass. They had come to Earth at Marcus's suggestion. Not for a mission, not for diplomacy, just to visit, just to live. Kalira had never seen a place so loud. Children laughed in open parks. Dogs barked and chased flying toys. Vendors shouted over open-air stalls selling things called candy apples and hand pies. Yet the emotions around her were warm. Strong, yes, but not chaotic. Not angry, just alive. And she was beginning to feel it too. Her feathers shimmered again. Often, the muted grays and blacks were replaced with copper joy, ocean blue curiosity, and soft lavender peace. Even her voice had returned. Not loud, not constant, but hers. They stayed in a temporary cabin near the Terran Center for Cross-Cultural Learning, a quiet retreat where alien youths could interact with human society. Kalira had been invited to share her story, though Marcus left the decision entirely up to her. "I'll come with you," he said, "but only if you want to go." She had nodded. "I do. It's time." The amphitheater was modest, a half-circle of seats under a glass dome. Humans and a few alien species sat quietly as Kalira stepped onto the platform. Her feathers fluttered, nervous but steady, a gentle violet-pink hue. A translator pulsed softly on her wrist, but she didn't activate it. Instead, she reached into her pouch and pulled out a string of emotion beads, each one different, colors that spanned her journey. She held them up. "These," she said in perfect melodic English, "are pieces of me." The audience watched, silent. Each time I was returned, I added a bead. Fear, shame, hope, silence. They were how I spoke when I couldn't. She stepped forward, but then a human gave me something I never had before. Not comfort, not protection, a home. Her feathers pulsed gold now, clear and bright. He didn't fix me. He didn't try to change me. He just stayed. And when someone stays, you learn to breathe again. She turned, eyes searching for Marcus in the crowd. He stood near the back, arms crossed, pride and gentleness in his posture. I thought I was broken, but I was never broken. I just needed someone who didn't fear my pain, someone who saw it and didn't run. Tears welled in the eyes of more than one listener. The translator buzzed quietly, but no one needed it. Her voice was universal. Kalira bowed slightly, then placed her bead string on the table marked Shared Histories. Not as a warning, but as a gift. Later that evening, back aboard the Solace, Kalira returned to her room. She had added new decorations, a Terran wind chime, a painted map of her star system, and a mural on the far wall. It wasn't finished, but the main shape had taken form. A great Velari tree, its roots tangled in stardust, its branches covered in tiny Terran stars. Beneath it, she'd painted two figures, one tall, dark and scarred, the other small, feathered and glowing. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching. "You drew us," he said softly. Kalira nodded. "It's our tree. I remember hearing you once say, 'Home isn't a place. It's the person who stays when everything else falls apart.'" He smiled. "I didn't think you heard me say that." "I did," she whispered. "And I believe it now." She stepped aside to let him in. There, beneath the tree, was a plaque carved into the wall. It read, "I was not too much. I was just waiting for someone enough." Marcus rested a hand on her shoulder, eyes shining. "You've always been enough." Kalira's feathers glowed, a radiant spectrum, gold, silver, and deep emerald. Safe, loved, home. As the stars wheeled quietly outside the view window, the Solace drifted in its orbit, a small ship carrying two souls bound not by blood or duty, but by choice. And that choice, made again and again, turned a rejected child into someone whole.